Learned inside today, so it's safe for we're at Paraches. I did a lot of introductory work. Very Shabbat Pad, I'm going to try to hold myself back from doing more introductory work and doing the work. But in the first paragraph of Paraches, on the last line, which is really where we left off, what we were talking about was the positioning of the Cherubim. And to make a very long sugya short, there's the sugya in Baba Basra, Tzadik Tes Amud Aleph, is talking about the Cherubim in the bayis of Shlomo, not the Cherubim in the Mishkan in the Midbar. And what the Gemara comes out and says that in the Midbar, clearly it's a pasuk beforish, the Cherubim were Pnei Mishalachiv, whereas in the Mishkan Shlomo, the pasuk of Pshat is that the Pnei Malaboyis. So the question was, why did Shlomo HaMelech change from what it says before in the Chumash that Pnei Mishalachiv, the Cherubim should be facing each other? Why did he face them not facing each other? So it can't be. So the Gemara says, the Gemara's answer is Sadudei at Sadudei, that they weren't really facing the wall, but they weren't facing each other either. They were on a slant. So they were a little bit facing each other and a little bit facing the wall. So that's what the Gemara ends up in the Maskana. So he wasn't going against the Chumash that says that they were Pnei Mishalachiv, but he seemed to have a tendency to want to make it Pnei Malaboyis for some reason, but he couldn't go against the Chumash, says the Gemara. So he made it Sadudei at Sadudei. He made them on a slant, and that's the Maskana of the Gemara. So the Gemara that tells us Sadudei at Sadudei, in a way, presents even a bigger question than the original question. The original question was, why did Shlomo HaMelech change? And the answer is that, yes, he changed, but he didn't change it completely. He didn't want to go against the Torah Lagamri, so he put them on a slant. But the question that begs the question, why didn't he just do what it says in the Chumash to do, which is Pnei Mishalachiv? It seems like he was forcing himself to tilt them a little bit to each other. The Rashbam in Baba Basra there learns that the pshat in Sadudei at Sadudei is that in the Rashbam, from the Rashbam it comes out, I can't say the Rashbam says this, but from the Rashbam it comes out that there's really three madregas, and this is where we left off. There's really three madregas that are possible. The Cherubim represent, one of them represents Hashem, and one of them represents Klal Yisrael. So one was a Zachar, one was a Nekeva. So there's really three possible situations between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One situation is that Pnei Malaboyis, like we're not looking at each other altogether. That's not a good situation. Another situation is that Pnei Mishalachiv, the Cherubim, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, are staring at each other in the eyes. K'oyhavim zeh zeh. As it is when it's oyavim zeh b'zeh. And there's even further where it says that they were ma'urim zeh b'zeh. They actually were intertwined with each other. They were hugging each other. But l'chol hapachas, there was a tremendous ava. When you love somebody, you stare at them straight in the eye when you talk to them. And then there was what Shlomo HaMelech did, which is Sadudei at Sadudei. So he put them on a tilt, and the Rashbam says there, Kishimidaber Yishivireyu. It's not talking about a casual relationship, not a deep love, not an anger. It's not when you talk to somebody, you don't necessarily stare at them straight in the eyes. It gets on your nerves. So what you do is you a little bit to the side, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's a casual relationship. It's not, yeah. So that's the pshat Sadudei at Sadudei. Again, that doesn't answer the question. The main question here, which is the last line of the first paragraph, in mine it's the last line on page Chav Zayin. I don't know if you have the same book as I have. But the question still remains, why did he put them mitzudadim? Like, what was his need to put them in any way different than the Chumash? Why would he put them in any way, even a slight slant, not like it says by the Mishkan of B'Tzalel of Pnei Mishalachiv? Like, why did he change it? That we didn't explain. The Gemara is saying he wasn't going against the Chumash. It's too bad studied. Okay, he wasn't going against the Chumash. Why didn't you just do what the Chumash says? So,
what does the bayit represent? And they're looking at it. I mean, they're looking at it for a reason also. Why did it say that?
What do you mean?
Why did it have to say they're looking at the bayit?
As opposed to they're not looking at each other.
Each other, yeah. There's some significance to the fact that that's where they were looking.
Right. I could only imagine that I can only imagine that it's like a mashal would be like a husband and wife that are staying together for the kids. Or when I became the rabbi of Beis Torah and Monsey, so everyone came over. They made like this welcome party, and everybody came over. My name is this. My name is that. And a couple came over to me and said, "We're Mr. and Mrs. So and so. We're married, but we only stay together because of the kids."
Why is there like...
So what's up, chap? It's like, in other words, we have a united goal. But we're not really doing this together. The goal is the kids. So, but like is like, okay, Klal Yisrael doing their thing, Kadosh Baruch Hu is doing his thing. We'll get along.
Why isn't the marshal that it's two people looking, side by side, looking at a tremendous mouth, husband and wife. Hashem is looking. You're looking in the same direction Hashem is looking in. It's not.
Yeah, but you're not looking at each other. Like, we have to both do this, so let's get along. Let's make this work. But we're still not looking at each other.
There seems to be a third, worse category of monasteries. At least they have a common goal.
Yeah.
Common
looking
goal.
back, yeah. So it's not like they were back to back.
Yeah, that's
there was another. Yeah, I was thinking, just we were talking about Mashalom, I was just thinking that sometimes, like if you have a little kid, I haven't had a little kid for a while, but if you have a little kid and the kid doesn't want to come, I don't want to come. So what do? You start walking away. You figure the kid is going to follow, so you start. Right, everybody's been there. So you start walking away, but at the same time you're walking away, a little bit you're you're looking back to make sure the kid is following you, right? So like you try to give off the image that I'm just walking away, but really the corner of your eye is there. So I just like the image I have in my mind of Tzedudei at Tzedudei, that really, name Labayis. But it's a little bit of that, okay, but just getting a sort of a deeper understanding. I just want to interject, even though I said I wasn't going to do this. I want to interject one review point that we made, that l'chayra, there's a huge difference between the Mishkan of Betzalel and the Beis Hamikdash of Shlomo HaMelech. And the Mishkan of Shlomo was in the Midbar, and the Mishkan of Betzalel rather was in the Midbar. The Mishkan of Shlomo was in Eretz Yisrael, and there's a difference there because there's a whole difference in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Midbar and in Eretz Yisrael. Let me just say this: I don't mean better and worse. I mean different type of relationship. The relationship that we had with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Midbar was Eftecha Picha V'Amalehu. You need food, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you man. You need meat, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you slav. You need Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you Maim and Har Sinai. Everything was just like spoon-fed to us. And there you have the Kruvim being Ish Halachiv. The whole point of coming into Eretz Yisrael is we are taking upon ourselves more responsibility. It sounds funny because it's like more gashmi, so you become even more spiritual when you come into Eretz Yisrael. But no, we're taking it because that's not what Malchus is. Malchus is we're taking it sort of like a little kid. You don't give them any fiscal responsibilities at all. You just feed them after chapicha ve'amalehu. Just everybody relax for a second. But where Bashei, like when we came to Eretz Yisrael, now you have to work the land. Now you have to plant. Now you have to do charisha. So the planting in the Harisha has a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. It's not just like it's a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. I keep on saying, we're building a building. It's Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, breaking the bedrock in Eretz Yisrael, developing Eretz Yisrael. So that's like, it sounds like it's more Gashmius, but what you're really doing there is you're yes, more Gashmius, but you're taking the Kvod Hashem, the Shechina, and you're permeating it, in our case, so what is it, 6 meters into the ground. Like it's a very deep, no pun intended, malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the pshat is that, but to put it on a more Kabbalistic level, the idea is that when we were in the Midbar, we were being spoon-fed. When we're in Eretz Yisrael, we have to do it ourselves. We have to do it, and then that's which is called Isarusa de Losata. We have to do it. It's not any longer. You don't go to yeshiva and get a Maimon Har Sinai. You go to yeshiva and you learn how to learn. Whereas you have to make the Chidushei Torah. So it would seem to me that that Shlomo Melech's Hechra, before we say Rechaim says that the what was compelling to Shlomo Melech was we're in Eretz Yisrael here. We're building the Beis Hamikdash. We're making the fields. We're building a country here. We're making a government, and we're being charesh. We're everything. So it's Sedudei Atzedodeh, meaning that yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have this relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but to some extent, it's not the same thing as it was in the Midbar. It's not the same Madrega, which was, by the way, the problem that the Meraglim had. That was the problem that the Meraglim had. They didn't want to go into a situation where they take responsibility for this is for building Eretz Yisrael. Well, why should we? When we're here in we're here in the Midbar. It was actually quite a good situation in the Midbar. It's like here they're being waited on, in the Midbar. They're being waited on by Kadosh Baruch Hu. They're being taken care of in the Midbar. Their clothes were being washed by the Anonei HaKavod. Everything good. Like who really wants to walk out of that situation and go into a place of personal? But walking into Eretz Yisrael, it all of a sudden, is it going to rain today? Is it not going to rain today? Are the tomatoes going to grow? Or are the tomatoes not going to grow? So that's actually a place of, not a lower level, but a place of higher achrayus, it would seem. But I think that Yesod is a very important one to go further over here.
How far did the original Kruvim go with the Tzalos group?
Lo Yadu Ali. According to many Mefarshim, the Pashut of Pshat is that the Aron that Shlomo Melech had was the same Aron that Moshe Rabbeinu had. And David HaMelech was fighting for that Aron the whole time. It was in the hands of the police jail, etc. So that was the Aron. And the Pashut of Pshat is that the Aron included the Kruvim. But maybe the Aron didn't include the Kruvim. Maybe because it was, they worked on some kind of he built these kruvim, Sedodei Atzedodeh. So it could be that just because they had the Aron, and just because the police took the Aron and all of the stories with the Aron that we know from Sefer Malachim, doesn't mean that those Aron had the kruvim on top. It could be the kruvim were a different keli, and he built the kruvim. In which case, we could understand that he would build them differently than they were in the original kruvim. So he rebuilt the kruvim when he came to the Aron. That's one pshat. Another pshat is that he had the Aron with the kruvim, and they were Pnei Mishal Achiv. And here's what a lot of the Mefarshim say: but he built another pair of kruvim that were on the side, big ones that were standing in the corner of the Kodesh Kodashim. Mm-hmm. So there are many Mefarshim, and there are Moshe and others that learn, right, Masechta Midas Perek Beis, that there were actually 4 kruvim in the Kodesh Kodashim, 2 little ones, Yachasi, on top of the Aron, and they were Pnei Mishal Achiv, because he's not going to can't change that. And then the ones he built, which was like a whole different thing. Like he built a lot of things. In the Mishkan he had a menorah. In Shlomo Melech's Mikdash there were 13 menorahs. When you look at the Arch of Titus and you see them carrying out the menorah, you say, oh, that's what the menorah looked like. That's not what the menorah. They had 13 menorahs. That wasn't necessarily the menorah. Probably wasn't the menorah. It was just a menorah. He liked a lot of light. Shlomo Melech liked light. So he had menorahs all over the place. He had menorahs, 13 menorahs. It says in the Masechta Midas that he had. So so he built other things. He built kruvim. He liked the symbolism.
4 kruvim or 4 sets?
In other words, 4 cherubims. Meaning 2 sets.
Did any of the Mefarshim say that he turned the Tzalos?
Yeah, I mean, if you say that it was, I mean, I guess you could say that also, but that's already like really shver, because it was all.
Already you have to break them.
He would have to break them.
It's 24 karat gold.
What?
It's 24 karat gold.
So he heated it up and he moved it.
No, right there. It's soft enough.
Oh, okay.
So there's no mention from the Midbar to Shlomo
Pella to move the. I mean
from the Midbar to Shlomo, there's no mention of them.
Well, Shiloh, it says they had the Aron. There's no place until Yoshiyahu HaMelech, which was 500 years later. There's no place where the Aron seems to have gotten lost. All I'm saying is the Kruvim, I don't know. The Kruvim may have gotten lost. So okay, I just keep that in mind because this is a very important aspect. The difference, the difference between the Midbar and Eretz Yisrael, which, for the purpose of the next paragraph that we're going to learn, I mentioned on Thursday. That's also, if you think about it, the difference between Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and all of his colleagues, the Holy Tanoim, like Rabbi Shmuel, because Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was zocha to live like that, like the Midbar, even in Eretz Yisrael, right? Because he went into a cave for 13 years, and there in the cave he had man, and he had Berish and Miriam, and he had everything taken care of. So for him, that was the correct relationship. That was the relationship which is possible even in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Shmuel says, who's working the land? And you see that when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came out of the Ba'ara, Ba'ara, he was like very offended by this idea of people are plowing and planting and doing all kinds of gashmiistic things. Like, you don't have to do that. I just spent 12 years as it was at that time in the cave, and everything was given to me in a silver platter. You don't have to do that. Why are you doing that? And he was offended by it, and the Baskol came out and said, back into the cave. You're not there yet. And when he came out apparently with two dinim. One din is that it is possible, even in Eretz Yisrael, to live a completely spiritual life where HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything for you. But it's also something to appreciate that this old man is running down the street on Erev Shabbos with two hadassim, echad keneged zachar, echad keneged shabar. That's also beautiful. So he came out. He had to go back in the cave for another year to learn that shtickle Torah. That there's also something about going into Eretz Yisrael. So it's where it's b'hayim shamoa. So based on Rav Shimon Bar Yochai having it, in my opinion, I'm not saying I wish I would have seen this in the Sefer, but okay. But it seems to me that he had like a halacha of Midbar. The cave was the Midbar. Eretz Yisrael. Similarly, we find just while we're here, the Mefarshim say that it was a zman of when Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was in the Ma'ara, in the cave. So he was in a bechina of a mace. He was buried in sand and was living off the tal, etc. He was a geder of mace. So when he came out of the Mara, he was in a geder of tchias hamesim. So by tchias hamesim, asid ha ilanois lohoitzik luskois. That by tchias hamesim, the time of the ultimate gula, like the end of the gula there. So clothes will grow on trees, and there won't be any more working, and all that'll be it. So that's what he was coming from. Hey, this is Tchias HaMesim here. What's going on? Why are you working? Why are you plowing fields? But it wasn't. It might have been for him a Tchias HaMesim, for him and his son, but it wasn't necessarily a Tchias HaMesim. It wasn't a Techiyah for the whole Olam. So we're talking about a very deep, perspective difference between Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He wasn't just like a Midbar Yid, but he was actually a dead Yid that came into a world and was expecting it to be, after his experience in that cave of learning sight and Daika, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't teach him Baba Kama while he was in the sight. What he taught him was Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is a geder of Harsina, Kabbalah, like Kabbalah Satir. Like, there's nothing to be mafalkal about in Kabbalah. There's nothing to there's no chakiras, there's no ruchaim briskers. It's Kabbalah, it's a sight. So to him, his whole matzah was a matzah of being makabel. Whether it's makabel parnasa or makabel, like he was just makabel. But then he had there then became a sort of a friction between what he had developed in that cave to everyone else in the world that weren't there yet, apparently, or felt that they shouldn't be there. That's what we need to clear, because this V'ha'ol B'asaf to the Ganach V'Sirosha V'Tziracha L'chora doesn't apply to the Zman HaMashiach, apparently, where there won't be any more of that. So the Nefesh HaChaim says as follows: Va'inyanhu, let's start explaining this. I spoke this out. It says in Masechta Brachos, Tana Rabbanon v'yasafta digonecha. Now read this very carefully, because I know for years I didn't. So let's read this very carefully. It says in the Torah, as we know, we say this every day, v'yasafta digonecha v'sirosh v'tzerecha, which means what? You should gather your harvest. You should gather your harvest. That's work. It's not falling down from Shemaim. You have to gather your harvest. V'yasafta digonecha v'sirosh, your grapes v'tzerecha. Fishanemar, so the Gemara, this is all quote. The Gemara says, Fishanemar, Yoshua says, Hashem said to Yoshua, La yamush sefer atara zemipicha. That you should never stop learning Torah. La yamush sefer atara zemipicha. Hashem said to Yoshua. So, freak the Gemara, Yachol dvarim kichsavan. Are we meant to take that chiyuv, that sivui, literally? Maybe that's what you're supposed to do. Like, if you're Jewish, everybody has a different tachlis. If you're Jewish, you just be learning Torah all day and all night. That's maybe what we should do. Like Yamush Sefer HaTorah Zemipicha. Not so hard to imagine. You're a nation of priests. You're a holy nation. Just learn Torah all day. The Gemara says, Yachol Dvarim Kiksavan. That's what I would think. Just learning the pasuk in Yoshua. La Yamish Sefer HaTorah Zemipicha. La Yamush Sefer HaTorah Zemipicha. Yachol Dvarim Kiksavan. I might think that you have to take that literally. On that the Torah says in Devarim, v'yasafta digonecha. Haneg bahen minig derech eretz. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. And the part that I always read wrong, and I want to read right now, is don't take it literally. Elamai, haneg bahen minig derech eretz. This is Rabbi Shmuel, not Rabbi Shmuel. That yes, you have to be learning Torah day and night, lo yamish sefer HaTorah zemipicha, but haneg bahen, not minig derech eretz, meaning not leave the Beis Medrash of lo yamish sefer HaTorah zemipicha, and now Torah says get out into the fields and work. What it means to say is haneg bahen, that you should lo yamish sefer HaTorah zemipicha, but you have to somehow fit into that this idea of derech eretz. It has to work also.
Bahem is divrei Torah then? Bahem means in...
Haneg bohen, that's what it means. There's no other way to say it. Haneg bohen, in the divrei Torah, minhag derech eretz. It's different than the way it's always explained, right?
You can see Torah
on life?
No, bohen in the Torah. Yachol dvarim kichsavan.
So what's that stuff that the Genefa have to do with that?
You can learn Torah in everything you do, and you're gathering.
So he explains. He's going to explain that. But I'm just saying the lashon of the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel's shita is that, look, you have to be osek in life, but it does say lo yamush sefer HaTorah zemipicha. So we're not saying that this pasuk is discounting the first pasuk. Lo yamush sefer HaTorah zemipicha. Now, haneg bahen minig derech eretz. You can't neglect your life. So you have to somehow intertwine, interweave into that Torah. You have to interweave this Indian of Derech Eretz. So it seems to be from the Gemara. And that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says no. Who are you fooling? When you're being charish, you have to be charish. You're not sitting in the base medrash being charish. When you're being charish, you're being charish. When you're being zoreya, you're being zoreya. So, Rosh Hashanah says, like, what do you mean, haneg ben minig derech eretz? So it's one thing to pick up your cell phone. It's another thing to be choresh. So if you're being choresh, so Torah matayala, what's going to be with the Torah? In other words, what you're doing now is neglecting the first pasuk l'gamri. So Rosh Hashanah is really making a practical observation that your eitz of haneg bohen minig derech eretz is not really it's not real. Who you're fooling? Because Adam choresh and the lushness. So he doesn't say no. He says no. He says no in a different kind of a tone. After Adam Charish Rishas Charisha, he says, I hear what you're saying. So what are you saying? Hanig ben minut derech eretz. Okay, now I'm going to go plow my field. It's the season. I got to plow my field. This is 12 hours of work. So Charish Rishas Charisha, Zareya B'Shas Zariya. I have to do what I have to do. Now,
well, what did he
one of the most moving things that I've ever seen, maybe you've seen also, is I just in the Gush, I was driving through the Gush, and I saw a guy driving a tractor with a kippah sruga and tefillin and a Mishnah Berurah. it was just so. I stopped the car and I said, "Wow, like Mamash Mashiach, no? Like Haning Behen, Minig Derech Eretz. Like this is like okay." So like what can I do? I got to plow the field. Now it's important to remember when you see this kind of a scene that they didn't have tractors in the time of Rishon Bar Yochai. It wasn't such an easy. It wasn't so possible,
But they had Shema Bezochar with the two things that he saw when he came out of the cave that this farmer was carrying.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
somebody doing some plowing. Somebody was doing some plowing. So Rishon Bar Yochai's answer is Afshar Adam Charish Rishas Charisha Torah Matahei Olam. And this is the reason why we bring this Gemara by the Cherubim. The answer is because you see the same lashon again. Ela Bizman She Yisrael. So this is the Gemara says. Ela Bizman She Yisrael Loisin Ritzayna Shel Makayim. So Rishon Bar Yochai's answer. He says you need to understand this. That Bizman She Yisrael Loisin Ritzayna Shel Makayim Malachta Nasas Hayidei Acher. Somebody else will plant those hadassim. Somebody else will do the charisha. In other words, enochanam, like it's so deep what he's saying. Enochanami, like you have no choice. You have to do charisha, you have to do zriya. But if Rishon Bar Yochai, you should know that if you're oiser ritzayna shel makom, that chiyuv of yasafta de ganecha will have an ayidei shaliach. Somebody else will be doing it.
Who's the shaliach? Yisrael means Kol.
Who's the shaliach? Somebody, I don't know.
Yisrael means Kol Yisrael or Pal Yisrael?
I don't know. But what I'm saying that like it's not. He's being miyashiv the stira differently. The first way to be miyashiv the stira is learn the Gemara deeply, right? You hear Moshe? The first way to be miyashiv the stira is haneg b'hen minut derech eretz. That's one way to be miyashiv the two psukim. He's being miyashiv. I'll tell you a different shot. There's no such thing as haneg b'hen minut derech eretz. There's no such mitzias practically of haneg b'hen. Either you're being chorish or you're learning Torah. Drainage can come, but you could be learning Torah. What about v'yasafta ganecha? Ayidei acher. Now, another diuk in the Gemara. So they have two terutzim to the stira and the psukim. This is the way to learn this Gemara be'iyam. Another important diuk in the Gemara is he doesn't say, and this is very important, he doesn't say, don't worry, if you're learning Torah, mlachta nasas ayidei acher. Doesn't say that. He says, Returner shel makom means a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily mean sitting and learning in Koil, don't worry, not lachta nasas hayidei acher, even if you're learning Basmada. That might not be the Returner shel makom. How do you know that's the Returner shel makom? If somebody is, I'm just thinking about this, like somebody is, I know somebody who has like a huge koach in chesed. Like huge. He's been doing it for a living for years and years, and he knows how to work the medical system. He knows how to work the government. He knows how to work. He's helped thousands of people here for parnasa. That was what he did. He had a job helping people, and something went wrong in the job, and he went to one of the gedolei hadar, and he told them, "Okay, it's basher to do. It didn't work out. Go learn kaidel, sit and learn." You know. And I'm not a gadol. I'm not mani machai. I'm just a Talmud lifnei rabbi. Like, is this a good eitzah? I don't know. Like here he has a koach. His ritzoner shel makom is to do a tremendous amount of chesed. And truth be told, he doesn't even know how to learn. So what's he going to do with that base medrash all day? It's to learn. Like join the kolol community. Like to me, that was just I don't know. It doesn't even necessarily mean when I came to I don't think there was a bigger basket of the generation than by Rebbe. It was probably the basket of Dor or Scheidberg. But when I moved to Eretz Yisrael, here there was a Rav here, and I did this, and there's a Kiruv Center, and all kinds of things. So he asked me, "What are you doing?" I was here for about a half a year. He said, "What are you doing?" So I told him, I'm speaking in this place. I give a shir in that place. I teach in this seminary. I'm going here. I'm going there. I'm writing a book. I told him my whole list of things. He looks at me and says, "What happened? You had a stroke?" That's like, what do you mean you're like, do something, like do something serious. What do you so here's
And then we called you.
yeah, soon after, like it's It just woke me up to like, what do you, you know, like, is it a retirement here? What are you doing over here? Do something, build something, you know, like writing a book, giving a speech, and blah, 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 blah. You know, like he was like, he looked at me like, yada, yada, yada. You're like, what's it going? It's there. So I don't know, like, what does it mean, like, but in any case, you have this machlekes. I just want to tell you something. A mashal of Hanig ben Minig Derech Eretz. It's something I was struggling with for years. I don't do this. I'm just saying I'm struggling. But there's really like a derech, which I wish I could be makabel. And if you look, let's say, we're talking about Rav Scheinberg. You look at the derech. The derech was like this. You know, he supported. You know, he raised money for yeshiva, a couple $1 million a year. He was the Rav of Mattersdorf, so lines of people all day, and he was a couple hundred grandchildren. He was Isaac in that. But the Metzias is that he was full-time learning. I mean 24/7 he was learning, meaning his default status was he had a Gemara in front of him. And okay, you have to do something, I'm going to ask a shayla, you have to go raise money, you have to raise money, you have to take a phone call, you take a phone call, you have to eat, you eat, you have to sleep, you sleep. But the default status is learning, as opposed to somebody who has a star. I was saying, I learn in the morning, I learn in the afternoon, I learn at night, blah, blah, blah. So like all that learning, like I think kviyas itim l'Torah doesn't necessarily mean that from 9 to 10 I learn Torah. I don't know if that's what it means. Could be kviyas itim l'Torah is like the Gemara says over here in Rabbi Shmuel, that layamish sefer HaTorah mipicha. That's your kviyas. Your kviyas itim is l'Torah. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is a dupsha. Kviyas itim is l'Torah. You have to do other things. You have to live. Hanik bohem minig derech eretz. So figure it out. Figure out how to do the minig derech eretz life. On that, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says no. You can't do two things at once, and just be in the cave and be makabel. And it says v'yosafta deganecham lachta nasas hayidei acher. That's the way. So that's like a good mashal of probably what Rabbi Shmuel meant of hanig behen minig derech eretz. But when you and the other important diuk here is that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gives a caveat over here that the only time this is going to work, we don't pass like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because the only time this is going to work, even l'shita sai, is if you're Oyser Ritzon Shalmakim. And the Oyser Ritzon Shalmakim means more than you're sitting and learning. Oyser Ritzon Shalmakim means you're fulfilling your part in God's plan. That's what Oyser Ritzon Shalmakim means, and that's whatever the plan is for you. So Oyser Ritzon Shalmakim, if I'm doing the right thing for me at this, which you need sometimes a Navi to tell you what's the right thing for your thing. I'm doing the right thing for your thing. You don't have to worry about the V'yasafta Deganachai. It's a pasuk. The pasuk could be Mekayim Ayidei Shliach. Nasas Ayidei Acher.
But it has to be learning Torah. Any other thing that allows you to be able to learn Torah means learning Torah is the only Ratzon Shel Makom.
No. Why? I mean, because you're not allowed to do anything else?
Because it's saying that's what gives you the right to be able to learn all day. So what's the question? Now I know the Ratzon Makom is to learn all day.
So first of all, even in the learning all day, like where are you doing that? With whom are you doing that? How are you doing that? Like that's that. What are you learning? Like the Osir Ritzon Shel Makom is deeper than just learning. Osir Ritzon Shel Makom is a lifestyle. What's my life? What's my family? You have to do. You have to have a family. What's my? The Osir Ritzon Shel Makom is a package. Which I agree with you. The mainstay, or I'm using this word, which I think is meduyah. The default status is learning Torah. And Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says, you know what? If you're really doing Ritzonai Shel Makom, whatever that means, if you're really doing Ritzonai Shel Makom, you won't get the phone calls. You won't be disturbed. But okay, you won't have to go out and charisha. But he's not saying that if you do have to, you shouldn't. He's saying that l'chara you won't have to. So here he says l'chara tamua. So the Gemara itself is shver. Now we have another kash on the pasuk. Follow along with this because there's 3-4 inyanim going on here at once. The pasuk says v'yasafta deganecha, and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai explains that must be talking about kishein oisin ritzonai shel makom. Well, Elmine, but look at the context of the pasuk. It says, "V'hayim shemayim tishmol mitzoysa." It's talking about you are doing la'avos Hashem Elokecha, la'avdoi b'chol avavchem b'chol nafshechem. So you are doing the Ritzayda Shalmakim. So in that, it says, "V'yosafta degonacha v'sirashu v'tzarecha." So how could Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, this is his kasha, tell you that "V'yosafta degonacha" is only talking about where you're not doing the Ritzayda Shalmakim? We're talking, the whole paragraph is a case of Oisin Ritzayda Shalmakim. So why does it say in that paragraph of "V'hayim shemayim tishmol mitzoysa" "V'yosafta degonacha v'sirashu v'tzarecha"? If that's ein oisin ritzayna shalmakim. Now, now he's going to answer, but I just want to say, we'll have to do it tomorrow because time's up. But I just want to say this to Kuda. It's not such a kasha, because what he says is that v'hayim shamaya. Don't worry about the v'yasafta deganecha because you'll do it. He's not saying to ignore v'yasafta deganecha. He's saying kisha oiser ritzayna shalmakim v'yasafta deganecha, but you won't have to do it personally. That's what he's saying. Somehow or another, it'll get done. V'yasafta deganecha. He's not suggesting here that I'm not in the parsha of v'yasafta deganecha. You are in the parsha because you are doing oiser ritzayna shalmakim. The only question is v'yasafta deganecha what something you have to do yourself? Is v'yasafta deganecha is malachta nasas al yidei acher, but the malacha has to be done. So the kasha is not really such a strong kasha in my because it's after l'kayim shnayim. You could be oiser ritzayna shalmakim and you're makayim v'yasafta deganecha. And how are you doing it? In the words of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, malachta nasas al yidei acher. I malachta nasas al yidei acher. Somehow miraculously, it's nas al yidei acher. So that's like a. I'll tell you a quick story before we break up here. But I remember thinking this, that when I first got married, so you have to buy a dira. You first get married, you buy a dira. So I found these diras in Romema. Romema at that time. Now it's a Haredi neighborhood. At that time it was a only Lagamri neighborhood. There was nobody lived there. It was, in fact, people were afraid to walk through Romema. It was like a very, it was like projects, people knew, it was difficult place. But anyways, I couldn't afford a regular dira, so I found a block of 8 diras on Mana Simcha, which is a little tiny street in Romema, and it was being sold by Betzalel Art School. So instead of a dira costing, at that time, $150,000 or $100,000, these were $20,000 each. So you have to buy all 8, so no problem. There were 7 chasanim and me, so we all signed. The deal was so good that this took me weeks to work out. I worked this out. I got the 7 chasanim. The deal was so good that between the AACI and the Sachnut and all the different things, all you needed to do to buy one of these diras have $5,000. $5,000 you buy a dira. And today these diras are worth about $500,000. So $5,000 you have the dira. So everybody's okay, quick, good. It came out at the end of the whole story that I got everybody together, we went to the lawyer's office, we signed, everything was there, and everybody had $5,000 except for me. I didn't have $5,000. I didn't have my own $5,000. I went to America because, I asked her, I just don't have $5,000 right now. I went to my new prospective father-in-law. Don't have $5,000. Nobody had $5,000. Like I just didn't have $5,000. So I remember calling. From a payphone, remember those? A payphone in Omaha, Nebraska, calling my friend David Krohn, who was one of the 8, and I said to him, I don't know what to do. I'm out. I don't have my $5,000. It's ridiculous. Maybe we'll get you a gemach. We'll get this. You organized the whole thing. I said, no, I'm not taking any gemachs. I'm out. That's it. I can't do it. The only thing is, you need 8, so I messed up the whole thing over here. That's what I feel bad about. I don't have a dira. So he said, Grada, it's not a problem, because there's a guy, Rabbi Yaakov Fried, Olav Shalom, who also just became a chassan. Yaakov Fried, who passed away a couple of years ago in a car accident, was finishing Masechta unlike me. He was finishing Masechtas one after the other, and he was making a siyum. Before he died at a very young age, he made a siyum. I was invited on Kol HaTorah Kula, but he was like a huge masna. So he said he asked about it. He'll take over your dira. So we have the 8, so that shouldn't bother you. And I remember on the phone in Omaha, Nebraska, thinking to myself that I've been working on this thing for 3 months. I'm running around the country looking for $5,000, and he's sitting in the basement, and somebody comes and tells him, "You got a deer." That's what I was thinking. Interesting, because I'll tell you the end of the story. So so that's it. So he lived with that deer until the day he died. That was his deer. Rav Scheinberg heard the story, and he said, "It's not right. The deeras were worth $20,000 each because it was a completely Chiloni neighborhood. But now that 8 younger light are moving into it, so it's got to be worth more." So he says, "Go to the shuk, go to a real estate broker and find out how much is the deer worth today. Like if you want to resell it, flip it, how much would it be worth today?" So it came out that it was worth $5,000 more, just because we signed on it. Each one went up $5,000, which was 5 times 8. So he paskin, without me even asking, he paskin that Yaakov Fried has to pay me $5,000. So all of a sudden I had $5,000 with no deer to buy. I had $5,000. First time in my life, I had $5,000, no deer. So what did I do? I went 2 buildings in, and somebody was selling the deer, and I said, "Look, these deers are selling for $20,000. I've got $5,000. I want to buy your deer." So I moved deep into the Chilonim, and I bought a deer 2 buildings further in, which seemed like it was this was in America, and this was in Siberia. That's the way it felt. It's 2 buildings in, 2 buildings further away from Mattersdorf, and I bought this deer. Now, it was a Hashkacha practice. Yaakov Fried had a deer for the rest of his life for this $5,000, and then, by the way, there was a pichut where the lira turned into shekels, and the ACI and the sachnut were mevater. I think it cost $100 to pay off the whole thing. So the whole dira was $5,000. An amazing thing. Because I moved there, all of a sudden I'm in the middle of all these chilonim. I wasn't even learning in Torah. I was learning a brisk at the time. So here in the middle of all these people, the people washing their cars on Shabbos, and the radio's blasting, and the girls outside. It was just like. So I decided I'm going to have to go into Cherubs. my first, so I went outside and I talked to the neighbors. In fact, Rav Scheinberg told me to become friends with them, see what happened. So I started talking to them. I had to tell you something. The whole block became from. Unbelievable thing. Whole block.
Wow.
One of them is a Rosh Kollel in Beitar.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you the truth. One guy is a Rosh Kollel in Beitar. Another guy is. They're much firmer than I am. Completely from the whole block became from the whole block. The tshuva. Now, you think about. He had a dira, and I had a dira, and a whole ma'peich on the block, and then I get a call from Rabbi Yaacov Haber all of a sudden saying, "I heard you're a master cure worker." A master cure worker. He says, "Yes, you must go into this professionally." So one thing, I'm not writing a biography here. I'll just tell you a story of the main thing I would say is Mlach Tanasas Hayidei Acher. So who's supposed to do this? So the Matlin does this. But Basof, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan is just unbelievable plan. It's just I think back at this and I'm awe-inspired by this unbelievable how all these pieces all came together. And by the way, so what you have now was 2 completely from blocks. And both of us are encouraged to work on the building in the middle, and we were resulted out to that also. Today, because of that, the whole Romema became, from, but different. No, not Balei Tshuva, just, Charedim started buying deers there, so now it's all Charedi, which is nice. Okay, that's nice. I go through there, but I don't have nachas. The nachas I would have had is if they would have been makar of all of those 10,000 people, which could mamish be done. It was like throwing a match onto a pile of hay. That's what it was that time. After the 6-day war, that's how easy it was. Just talk to them. But instead, people saw, we're getting big money for our deers. They ran away, and the Frum people moved in, and that was that. But the story of Mana Simcha is
amazing.
Is a Gavaldic story. So one of the old ladies died about a year ago, who still lived on that block. So I went to be Barach Bavel. I had seen them for 30 years. So I went to be Barach Bavel, her husband, and all of these people that I hadn't seen for 30 years also came to be Menachem Ovel. And somebody said, Yaakov Haber, all these guys that looked older than me and much more chashuv than me, Murray, the Rebbe. I was Makar of all of them, the whole room. I was Makar of all of them with their children, and with their grandchildren. It's like an amazing thing. Why? Because I didn't have $5,000. The whole thing was not having 5,000.
What you got at the end?
Yeah, which I had. Okay, my story for the day.
Wow.